Hi there, this is Emily Coba. I'm from Springfield, Missouri in the United States, and this recording is in support of Mr. Eugene Lukjanenko and his son. Now, for privacy reasons, I would not state the boy's name. By creating this video, I would like to accomplish two things. One is that I would like to raise awareness about this case, and secondly, I'd like to address a few words to anyone that works directly or indirectly with Medway Council of Child Services in UK, especially to Miss Anne Domeney, which is a director of the Medway Council of Child Services, and her boss, Mr. Jan Sutherland. Now, for those of us that are not so familiar with this case, or if you have never heard about this case, practically Eugene's son was taken away from him on the ground that Eugene is a descendant of a Holocaust survivor. And somehow Eugene must have inherited Holocaust trauma. I promise I'm not making that stuff up. This is what it's as an official reason for the child to be away from the parent. As scary as that sounds, or nonsense as that sounds, they say that Eugene has inherited Holocaust trauma. Now, Eugene was never in the Holocaust. It was his father, the grandfather of the child that's been taken away. The grandfather of the child is not living in the house with the family. He's not even living in UK. He lives in Israel. So it's not like the grandfather wakes up in the middle of the night having flashbacks and being traumatized, therefore traumatizing the other people in the family and traumatizing the child. No, that's not the case. That is just not the case. And there is nothing to indicate that Mr. Eugene has some issues. He has papers from 3 different doctors that all of them said there's nothing that we can treat since you don't have it. There's no illness to treat if illness doesn't exist there. Of course he's stressed, if that's something that someone wants to pick on. But excuse me, allow me to ask, what is a father who is desperately trying to get his son back? What is he supposed to be doing? Partying? Having fun? Pretending that life is just normal and just move on along with the life? Yes, he is stressed. That's one of the doctors said, yes, he seems to be stressed, but nothing else is to indicate that he has anything to do with it. And let me say this. This is a total discrimination to all the Jews, regardless of the nationalities. Now, Jew is a religion, Hebrews is a nationality. So Jews in general, for their faith, they were persecuted, and many of them, they were killed by the Nazis in the Holocaust. Like this child's grandfather, he has survived, but apparently the Nazis' agenda is still alive, and Medway Council of Child Torturing System, that's what it is. Medway Council of Child Services is torturing children and torturing families. And don't take me wrong. I totally know, and I hope and I pray that indeed Child Services is there to help children, is there to make sure that in case there is a harm, is a danger, they will protect the children. But this is not the case. How can someone say that they have to take a child away from the loving and caring father because the grandfather is a descendant of a Holocaust member? Now, that to me, it sounds discriminating to all the Jews, period. But not only that, it's saying that, hey, if someone has ever been involved in a car accident, in a medical trauma or medical situation, emotional situation that they have suffered, whether it was for a short period of time or it was for a long period of time, they are traumatized, and therefore people around them are traumatized as well. That means all these people have no right to live their lives, have no right to raise their children. It makes no sense. Inherited Holocaust trauma, it can be also inherited accident trauma, inherited emotional trauma for everyone else. And therefore, if we as parents keep our mouths shut, they could come, and for that reason, they could take the child because, hey, your child inherited some trauma because your parents 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago, or who knows when, they went through a car accident. And therefore, the child must have a very great exposure to a trauma. Does it make sense? Doesn't it? Now, originally the child was taken on different grounds, and now they're trying to come up with all the things. And this is the only thing that they can come against Eugene, is saying that he's a descendant of a Holocaust survivor and he inherited Holocaust trauma. Now, I'm going to link a link below this video that will show a documentary that was done in UK for the Forced Adoption UK. It is a program that covers how the authorities are handling some cases. And for those of you that don't know, UK, along with few other countries in the world, they have legalized forced adoption, meaning if the authorities, they believe they know better and they believe they should send your child for adoption, they will do that without your input, without your consent as a parent. So this documentary was done on Eugene and of course on some other cases as well, and so you will be able to get more details. A detail that I want to specify and mention, it will be great to know that in UK there is no law stating that a child has to be supervised until the age of 12 years old like it is here in the United States. I'm not aware if there is any other country in the world. I like this law. I believe there are many countries that should implement that, or at least to make people aware of things, but there's no such law in UK. Therefore, it's not unlawful to let the child alone or unsupervised for a certain period of time. And as a parent, I can tell you there are many things that can happen even in front of the eyes of the parent. Or let's say the child is in the other room playing and is getting hurt, even though it's along with a parent. Now, when Eugene's son was about 9.5 years old, Eugene went to a tax appointment to pay his taxes, to do his taxes, because he's a good citizen, you see. And so he decided that he would let his son home alone, which it was safe, and he was capable and responsible of taking care of himself for the time frame that the father was to go for this tax appointment. In the meantime, the child got out of the house, met with one of the neighbor's children, and they decided to experiment using a magnifying glass. It was hot outside, and they were successful at creating a small fire. Now, the firefighters came on time, and they were able to put the fire down. However, they took Eugene's son. Quite interesting enough, they did not take the other child, which was also involved. There were two boys doing that. They did not take the other British child, but they took Eugene, a child, which quite makes it even interesting because Eugene's son is a Dutch nationality, so he's not even a citizen of UK. And they also have arrested Eugene. Now, later on, Eugene was released, and the judge, it's not my opinion, it's not Eugene's opinion or somebody else's opinion. It was actually a judge's opinion that Eugene did not break any law, that there's no such case, that it's not a good case to keep him imprisoned or to keep the child away, and everything is fine. Eugene was released. However, it took Medway Council of Child Services. I'm sorry, but I keep thinking a child torturing system because that's what it is. They needed 15 months. We're not talking about 15 minutes. We're not talking about a day and a half. We're not talking about 15 days. We're not talking about a month and a half. We're talking about 15 months to release the child after a judge said that the child should come home. But they needed that much time. And quite frankly, that was done after Eugene has started protesting and started speaking about his situation. Now, they let the child come home. And within a very short period of time, Eugene noticed that the child was traumatized. It was not traumatized because of Eugene and the lifestyle Eugene was leading. The child was traumatized during the period that he was away from the family, from his father, and now he was showing the signs. Eugene took the child to the doctor's office, and the doctor has confirmed that the child is traumatized, that indeed children do get traumatized. Duh! It doesn't need scientific knowledge. It's not rocket science. You don't need degrees to know that children suffer greatly when they're taken away from the parents. Even animals, they're trying to protect their offsprings, and they're trying to fight for their offsprings, and the offsprings are suffering when they're separated. So it's not surprise. I mean, obviously, rightfully so, it shows that Eugene's son has been suffered quite a lot, and he showed trauma. Now, the Medway Council of Child Torturing System, because that's what it is, they have earned another name, they decided that they're not going to cover up, because you cannot cover up the obvious signs of torture and trauma that the child has been going through. But now they're blaming the father and say, well, we cannot prove anything else, but at least we can say that you are a descendant of a Holocaust survivor. Therefore, you inherited the trauma, and therefore the child is inheriting the trauma. And they took the child away, even though it was the child was recovering and he was visiting doctor's offices and he was getting the treatment. Actually, when the child was taken away, it was just hours prior to his appointment, and the father said, let me take him to the doctor's appointment. No, they did not. So who is going to tell me that Child Services, the Medway Council of Child Services, is doing a favor to this child? It's not a favor. It's not a favor. It's torturing. That's what it is. It's torturing. Now, they came up with not only getting the judge to give a paper to the father stating that the father is not allowed to ask the child what trauma he's going through. So the father is not allowed to ask. The father is not allowed to comfort the child. And even if the child opens up the subject to talk about his trauma, the father is somehow forced to discourage the child from opening up his heart and speaking up of the torture that he's going through, the trauma that he's suffering from. And they're proud about doing this. And Domeney and Mr. Jan Sutherland, we know that you have the power to release the child back to the father. We know that you have the power to reunite this family. You better reconsider your options and let the child go back to the family. If not, I must say that just like in other cases, just like in the Budnario case, if you haven't heard about the Budnario case, yes, it's not from UK. It is from Norway. It's a similar case of tyranny, of hiding things and trying to give all kinds of unrealistic reasons why the children to be away from the family, there were many protests. And there was a protest in April 16th, 2016. It was a worldwide protest that had included 26 countries, and there were 56 cities that held those protests, gathering thousands and tens of thousands of people at each gathering. Now, there were no casualties because we're lawful citizens and we are people who have a mind and we have a heart, and we're going to speak our mind out. There were no casualty whatsoever, but we got out and spoke. Now, Miss Ann Domeney and Mr. Jan Sutherland, if you need publicity, we're going to give you publicity. It's not going to be the best one. It's not going to be something that you would like, but we'll give it to you if that's what you're looking for. We're not going to be silent. I know you're trying to silence Mr. Eugene, and you're trying to intimidate him by saying that he's going to go to prison on January 16th. January 16th of 2017. Well, let me tell you this. You might be able to put him in prison because your connections with the judges and some other people that apparently they're not doing what the law is asking them to do, but they're doing what their connections want to do. But make no mistake, we're going to get out and protest, and we're going to make sure that your names are going to be all over the media, and we're going to make sure that we're going to spread the information about your information. No, we're not threatening you. No, don't say that you're threatened, because nobody's threatening you. I'm just giving you a friendly warning that we're going to expose you and expose your actions. We're not going to come and do anything wrong to you. Don't cry out that you feel threatened and that you feel hurt and insecure. Think of these families that you're breaking, especially in Eugene's case. Think of that child, for goodness sake. How can you go to sleep at night? As a parent, I cannot imagine. Miss Ann Domeney, are you a human being? With all due respect, I have to ask, are you a human being? Do you have a mind? Do you have a heart? To harm this child in such a way and then brag about what a great service to the society you're doing. You're promoting Nazis' agenda. You're working hard for the Nazis, not for the children. Don't say that you're helping children. You're not helping children. Miss Ann Domeney, we demand you release the child, go back to the father. Mr. Jan Sutherland, we are going to make sure that we're going to put pressure on you and other people that have the power of decision for the child to go back home. This is inhumane. Eugene never hurt the child. Eugene loves his child. Eugene took good care of his child. This is unrealistic. The child, before he was taken in care, he was involved into music. The child was involved into music, poetry. Even though he was a child, he was doing a lot of paintings. He was doing taekwondo. Now, the only thing that he's doing is football, which, yes, is good, but he's not doing all the things that he used to do. He is forbidden from speaking Russian, which is his first language. And you're telling me that he is protected? From who? From what? How? Answer us those questions. The child is not protected. The child is tortured. It is torture. The child has asked so many times to go back to the father, and he's been crying for that. And how can people at Medway Council Child Services tell the child that they have scheduled an appointment with a father when actually they forgot to call the father? And then they go to the child and say, see, your father has given up on you. He's not coming. He doesn't want to see you. You are murderers. You are people who are traumatizing children. You are people that should be put behind the bars. You are the ones who are hurting the society. And then tell the child that he's not going to be able to go home until he's going to be 18 years old. Now he's only 14 years old, and he cannot go back until he's 18 years old because his father is speaking publicly about his case. Shame on you. Shame on you, Miss Ann Domeney. Should I call you Miss? Shame on you, Mr. Jan Sutherland. I don't know what you're doing or what you're supposed to be doing, but you're a boss. You should have a word into that. The lack of your actions speak louder. How can people brag about themselves of the stuff that they're doing when actually it's doing wrong? Criminals in prisons, they have access more often to their family members and people that want to visit them than this child can see his father 4 times a year, and you're happy and you brag about your job? Shame on you, Miss Ann Domeney. Shame on you. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should just give up your job and go do something that you're useful, because you're not useful to the society doing this. I know my words might be harsh, but I cannot agree with a torturing organization. And I'm not going to be silenced by your tactics, your intimidations. This is unacceptable. It's mind-boggling. It's promoting Nazis' agenda. That's what you're doing. And Domeney, if you don't want to be associated with the Nazis, if you don't want to be exposed publicly, then you should release this child and let him go to his loving and caring father. Let him go, or else we're going to do what we did for the Benario family. Just search it. Benario, hashtag Benario, and you'll see that we have gotten into the streets and we have protested and the family has been reunited. But there were some people that were exposed. And if you want that, you're going to get that. You better make up your mind. Reconsider uniting the family and let everyone be happy. Now we're getting close to the holidays, the winter holidays, the Christmas. Imagine the child. I cannot even think. I don't even want to think of what is going through the mind of that child being away from the parent. And Domeney, we urge you and we demand to release the child. There's no reason for the child to be set away from the father. There's no reason. It's all made up. You're making all this stuff up to cover your wrongdoings. It's okay. We're all human beings and we all have mistakes. Just admit your mistakes and reconsider and let the child go to his father. Unless you really want publicity. It's your choice. It's your choice. You should let the child go back as soon as possible. And by that, I mean immediately. Because this cannot go on like this. This is unacceptable. Dear viewers, maybe some of my words were strong. But as a mother of 3 children, I have been marked of how people will find an excuse for their mistakes, hurting the most innocent children. And I'm sure there are people in Medway Council Child Services who are doing their best into helping children, into helping families, into making sure that there is a safe environment for every child in their area of service. But what good is that when there are some that are doing so much wrong and so devastating wrong for other people and other families? We have to ensure that every child is protected, not just some children. We see in this case alone that it was a discrimination against all Jews. It's a discrimination against all parents who have had in their life some sort of an event, traumatic event, or not even them as the parents of those children, but the grandparents of the children. If they were involved into something, then the children have to be traumatized. This is a real threat to the society. We cannot let this go. We have to fix problems, not create problems. I hope and pray that Anne Domeney and Mr. Jan Sutherland will make the right decision and release the child immediately. And I urge all the viewers to do the research on this case. Get as much information as possible on this case and voice your opinion. We need to get united. We as parents, we need to stand for what is right. We need to get together and fight the evil, the greater evil that is going to be. Today is for Eugene's case. We don't know whose case is going to open up tomorrow or after tomorrow, and whether or not we're going to be targets of those money and power hungry people that could care less about the innocent lives of children and the heartbreaking of the parents. And Domeney, I say this: if you want people to applaud you for your great work, you can make that happen. Release the child. If you want to be the target of public and publicity for people to talk about you and comment on your actions, then continue doing whatever you're doing. I hope you're going to make the right decision, and I hope that you are going to let this child go immediately. You need to do that.